So last week, this is interesting, something called the California Coastal Commission rejected SpaceX request to launch more rockets from the Vandenberg Space Force Base, which is about 150 miles north of LA. The commission claims they're worried about the environmental impact and the sonic booms that ring out for hundreds of miles. After all, you wouldn't want to wake up those 180,000 homeless in their tents before noontime, would you? But launches like these have been done for the past 70 years, not to mention the other sonic booms they allow, like letting Eric Swalwell eat bean burritos from Taco Bell. But the commission's own words prove they're less worried about SpaceX environmental impact than Musk's social impact. Here's Chairwoman Carol Hart.
We're dealing with a company that does not, that is the head of which has aggressively injected himself into the presidential race.
See, what she should have said was, we're dealing with someone who's injected himself into the presidential race who isn't helping the Democrats. But see, that would be honest, the trait that most bureaucrats abhor. After all, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, the Soros Foundation funds left-wing DAs left and right, and Zuckerberg helped swing an election for Joe in 2020. See, they're not mad Musk's a political billionaire. They're mad he's not their political billionaire. Listen to Commissioner Mike... Oh, thank you. I'll take it. I know. Listen to Commissioner Mike Wilson.
This company is owned by the richest person in the world with direct control over what could be the most extensive global communication system on the planet. And just last week, that person was speaking about political retribution on a national stage. And it was very glib, but yet he was standing next to a candidate that openly promotes and is working to normalize that language.
Oh my goodness! Oh, you poor thing. Look, if you're mad at someone normalizing bizarre language, arrest Kamala. Every speech sounds like she's barfing up a word of the day desk calendar. Finally, check out this doozy from Commissioner Gretchen Newsom.
Right now, Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA while claiming his desire to help the hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet.
Hopping? What, did he lose a leg? So this adorable creep is actually mocking Musk for helping disaster victims. What the has she done? Nothing. She's a bureaucrat. While she's shuffling papers, Musk delivered better internet access to North Carolina than public libraries have to horny homeless men, like Jamie Lissow. Now, do any of these bureaucrats really sound like they care about protecting wildlife? They wouldn't know the difference between a brown bear and a Brett bear. Actually, the only difference is one of them no longer in the woods. Now, the only thing they're really protecting is themselves. They're angry at Musk for not throwing his intellect and wealth behind their idiot Kamala, and they're abusing their power to punish him. Now, Musk is vowing to sue the commission for violating his First Amendment rights, claiming his words have nothing to do with his rocket launches, like Saturday's record breaker. That was a first. Nobody else in the history of the world has ever done that. Well, I once caught something shaped like a rocket, and boy, did the ER have a challenge removing that. Wasn't even July 4th. Fact is, Musk beat NASA with far less employees and cash, and he did it while also trying to cure disease, protect press freedom, and create an army of obedient robots. At least I hope they're obedient. When I say eliminate Ducey, I don't want an argument. Musk is changing the world, and these bureaucrats think they can get him to shut up. They can't, and that drives him crazy, because he embraces the call for adventure, which is the complete opposite of a bureaucrat. A bureaucrat exists purely to seek comfort, building a padded world around him without achieving a thing. Once a bureaucrat is born, its only goal is to feather its nest before it dies. But Musk is the enemy of comfort, which is weird for a billionaire. In fact, it makes being a billionaire the least interesting thing about him. He realizes that becoming comfortable with life makes you a menace to everyone else, because when you have no challenges, you use that time to infringe on others, like a bureaucrat. Do bureaucrats ever learn from failure? No. They avoid failure by avoiding everything worthwhile. So when they see someone who chases a challenge, they resent him. They've given up on their dreams, so they expect you to do the same. See, for Musk, it's about failure more than success. Failure becomes the next challenge, which becomes the next opportunity, which leads to wisdom. Compare that to those who despise him. They say it's over political beliefs, but it's far deeper. They don't have faith in themselves, and they hate those who do. Now, they could be inspired by him, but it's just easier to envy him and become an obstacle to the achievement of others. But look, you don't need to agree with his opinions. It's a free country. You have the right to talk back to him or anybody else. But when you try to stifle scientific progress because you hate a candidate, you're not the good guys. Maybe it should be you that we're launching into space. You know, California might look pretty good from up there. Let's welcome tonight's guest! His children admire the Menendez brothers. Actor, writer, comedian Jamie Lissow. This Molly is pure ecstasy. Editor-in-chief of The Federalist, Molly Hemingway. She'll soon have an heir to go with her clip-on hair. New York Times bestselling author and Fox News contributor, Captain.
He ate everything twice.
And he applies his deodorant with a steamroller. New York Times bestselling author, comedian, Jamie, I admire you because you can look at Elon Musk, who is clearly a successful, masculine, role model, and not be envious as, someone who's the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's true. I did feel some envy when I saw that rocket. I was looking at the rocket and I was like, man, I have never come back home to welcoming arms, mechanical or otherwise. That is really something. And in my past relationship, once I brought the rocket home and there was already a rocket in place. Elon, they're putting bureaucracy over progress. Like, Elon has actually talked about, like, if the Earth becomes uninhabitable, we could maybe live on Mars. This is a really big deal. And the other reason they're saying they don't want to have those launches is because of the sonic booms, like you mentioned, and the wildlife. I think it's a good trade-off. If you're saying we're going to save mankind and the trade-off is just a couple of bears once in a while are like, the was that?
Yes. And it's mostly desert in California, let's be honest, and snakes, they don't have ears, James.
Yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. The only thing that worries me, though, is if we go to Mars. Do you know how long it takes to get to Mars? I looked it up. It takes 7 months. The flight to Mars is 7 months, which can you imagine if you got on the flight to Mars and they sat you next to a crying baby?
Oh, terrible.
Can you imagine? And you go to the flight attendant, like, I don't think I can handle this. And they go, oh, don't worry. They'll grow out of it by the time we get there.
Will. It's an excellent point. Molly, basically they are saying if Musk was a Harris supporter, they would have made a different decision. How can they get away with that? That seems problematic.
That's absolutely what they're saying, and we've seen this with so many different federal agencies. So that Gretchen Newsom line about how awful it is that Elon is delivering Starlinks to Western North Carolina, he actually had won a government award to do that. They rescinded it after Joe Biden asked every federal agency to go after him, and they all have. Department of Justice, Southern District, New York, the SEC, the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and it's all because of his politics, and it's horrible because we've got this once-in-a-lifetime level genius who's doing all these great things, and our bureaucracy wants to destroy him.
Yeah, imagine if they, take somebody like Henry Ford, right? He had some crazy politics. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But imagine if they stifled his progress and said, hey, we don't care about the Model T.
No, like Jonas Salk had bad tweets, so therefore we don't want your vaccine. Yeah.
That's a better example. Don't have her on the show anymore. That was funnier. So, cats, pretty interesting stuff, huh?
Yeah.
You think it's fair that they can, rescind these rocket launches because he happens to be pro-Trump?
Well, I think a lot of people resent Elon Musk for a lot of reasons. Definitely, I mean, pretty clearly, a lot of it is the politics, right?
Yeah.
But I think even before that, I think there is, as you mentioned, this resentment towards him because I think that watching his life makes people feel they've been sold a lie in a lot of ways.
Right.
This is the richest man in the world. And if you think of what you would conceive of in, say, elementary school when you're imagining the richest man in the world, and then compare that to what you see when you look up Elon Musk. Like, what's he doing? He's offering $1 billion to Wikipedia to become Dickopedia.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
He did. He's on podcasts smoking weed. You know, and it's just it's people. I think he just kind of does what he wants.
Right.
He doesn't worry about the kind of buttoned up whatever. He just kind of says stuff. He's like the dude that you'd see out at the bar and talking like that, acting like that. And I think when you see someone more successful than you, that can make people be resentful in and of itself. But then when you see that person who's more successful than you doing the exact things that your whole life you were told you could not do if you wanted to be successful, then that makes that resentment even worse.
You know what? And also, it's like, if you're watching what he's doing, you realize that he is controlling his life. Somehow, it's like a video game. It's like it is a simulation for him. He can pretty much, if he wants to do it, he can do it. And that is shameful. It makes people embarrassed because they never acted on those dreams. So they're going like, oh, I guess I probably could have been a rock star, or I could have been a doctor, but I never thought it was possible.
Or I could have made that joke.
Yes. Tyrus, what say you?
Hold on, I'm tweeting Elon Musk. Seeing if he could offer you $1 million. No, was it $1 billion? $1 billion to change it to Feld.
Dude, I would take that.
I know you would.
If somebody offered me a lot of money to change my name, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, hey, Feld, cha-ching. Yeah, I would too.
And think about this. Think about how, like, your whole Google searches change. Nothing follows you.
Yeah, well, not just that, but here's the thing. He doesn't make very many mistakes. But even working with California is a mistake. Louisiana has NASA. Florida, I would just let California fall off the ocean.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who grew up there. And here's the thing. When we heard sonic booms as a kid, we cheered.
Yeah, we loved
We'd be out
them.
at this crazy thing called recess, where you played outside under the sun, and sometimes it'd be this crunchy green stuff called grass. Check it out, kids. And if we heard a boom, we'd be like, oh, cool. And then everyone would look to see if they could see the space shuttle, except that one time.
Yes. You're terrible.
It's too soon?
Too soon.
But my point is that he just needs to stop trying to work with them, because if the only answer that you have for stopping scientific research is, well, you don't like him,
Yeah.
then take your $1 billion ball, and because guess what? Florida, Louisiana, Texas, and be like, hey, you can launch in Texas, just yell yeehaw. You know what I'm saying? So, there's a million places that would be happy to have his business, his technology, and opportunities for economy, and so just move it.
Yep. There you go. Up next, she's a boxed wine sipper, staring at the Big Dipper.
If you'll be in the New York area and would like tickets to see Gutfeld, go to foxnews.com/Gutfeld and click on the link to join our studio audience.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.